You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi appearing on SNFU songs. On July 1st, 2020, the Propagandhi official Instagram posted some pictures of Jord, Todd, and Chris hanging out in Chris's basement wearing COVID masks. The caption of the picture read, "This week we recorded some guitar and vocals for a song by one of our all-time favorite bands, so we're pretty stoked. Can't wait till this tune hits the streets." So guesses from comments under the pictures ranged from everything from Hanson Brothers to Creator to Voivod, but we all know the answer to this mystery now. On March 12th, 2021, SNFU released an EP of unreleased material titled A Blessing But With It a Curse, recorded during the sessions of the fantastic LP In the Meantime and In Between Time, which came out in 2004. So these 5 never-before heard songs are absolutely wonderful, and I'm delighted to bring you a bonus episode telling the story of the EP, discussing the process of fine-tuning these songs, discussing the involvement of Propagandhi, and honoring the life and legacy of Chai Pig. I speak only for myself when I say how thrilling it is to hear 2004-era Chai Pig in 2021, only several months on from his death. So this is an incredibly moving EP. The tunes are amazing. It's fantastic. The artwork is incredible, and I think that everybody should grab a digital copy from rakerecords.bandcamp.com or a physical copy at Chase the Glory Records' website. So Chris, Todd, and Jord of Propagandhi contribute to the song Hail Bop, track 2 on the EP. 3 out of 4 members of Propagandhi appearing on one track from a legendary band warrants a bonus episode, right? Well, here it is. So my guest is Marc Belke, guitarist of SNFU. He tells me the whole story of this EP, and I'm absolutely thrilled to bring you this conversation. Hail Bop will take us home sweet home.
Got my black shirt on, got my black pants on, got my new track shoes on. I got a $5 bill and 3/4 in my pants pocket. Nothing left for me to do now.
Marc Belke, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so delighted you're here, Marc. Marc, in case anyone is learning of you and your work for the first time, can you just give a sort of very brief and tiny introduction of yourself to the audience and listeners?
Well, I'm primarily known as a guitarist for SNFU, and I did that for a very long time, for 20 plus years. I contributed a lot to the musical sound of the band. And and then that's primarily, I did other projects besides SNFU. I left and I did a band called Wheat Chiefs and another band called Based on a True Story later, but I'm basically known as the guitarist for SNFU, I think.
Fabulous. Well, speaking of SNFU, there is a brand new release out this past week, A Blessing, But With It a Curse. How are you feeling upon the release of this brand new project that you've put into the world within the past 5 days?
Well, I feel great about it. There was no haste in getting the project out, and I've just sort of been casually putting it together and getting it done and trying to channel a lot of other people's positive energy into the project and make sure it's good and worthy of Chai Pig's legacy and for the fans. And within the progress of the project, I sort of realized that I think it's really good. And I think all the songs could have been on the album that the sessions were originally recorded for, the 2004 In the Meantime and In Between Time. But they weren't. And so it's sort of a treat for SNFU fans more than anything.
It truly is. And Chris Hanna, I'm a member of his Patreon page, and he was talking about it a couple of months ago. He was sort of like teasing that he was involved in a project with you, and he was just like so excited by what he was hearing a few months ago. So like we've known that there was some kind of collaboration there for a bit on his super Patreon mega fans page. And it was just such a treat when this record came into the world last week. And, I'm curious about the title a little bit as well. SNFU releases tend to be 7 words long, with the exception of things like the Ping Pong EP and things like that. But tell me about concocting the title, A Blessing, But With It a Curse, and maybe what the title means to you.
Well, I wanted to have a 7-word title, and I wanted to have it something that was sort of a tribute to Chai. There was a quote, I had never heard him say it, but because I wasn't really hanging out with him that much in the last 10 or 15 years or so. But a quote where he said that his mother said that he had a blessing, but with that blessing came a curse. So I just sort of worked it into a 7-word title and used it.
So it's totally about Chai Pig.
Yes, it's a tribute to him for sure.
I love it. Well, let's get a little bit into Propagandhi and your sort of like your backstory of knowing these friends in music in Canada. Tell me a little bit about some memories of meeting and befriending Propagandhi, like whenever that origin story takes place. I'm curious about it.
Well, I don't really. Propagandhi were sort of a mystery to me more than anything, because I never really met them until a few years ago when they played here in Victoria. It was the first time I ever saw them, and it was one Super Bowl Sunday or something. I remember because it's like my birthday, and there's my cousin always has a Super Bowl party, and Propagandhi was playing that night, and I brought my new Kiwi cousin to the show.
Nice.
But that was the first time I had met them. I'd sort of had small bits of correspondence with Todd, because he's sort of
huge
SNFU
fan,
super fan, and he would always be anything that got posted about SNFU, he would chime in and be like, yeah, and be super positive and like that. So I really wanted to meet him, and that was the first time I met Chris too. And so I haven't really known them for that long. I've obviously known of Propagandhi. I think I was a little didn't know we played a show in Winnipeg one time on the Green and Leafy tour, and someone left a flyer on our windshield of our van that said, something green and leafy this way comes, it's called money, you old farts. And someone said it was from Propagandhi or something like that, and so we were like, ooh, that's not nice. So I didn't even know that I thought they didn't like us for the longest time.
Interesting.
But they obviously do, because I've had conversations with Chris, and they say the most flattering things about SNFU. So, and Chris covered the one song. So when it came to this record, I wanted to get them involved somehow, and channel that sort of positive energy into the project.
What did you think of Wreck in Progress whenever you heard it for the first time? Because that came out on Chris's exclusive Patreon, and the fans, we loved it. And he wrote a very moving essay about why he felt so attached to that song on his Patreon page. Tell me a little bit about what you thought whenever you heard his cover.
Well, I was thrilled. It's always thrilling when anybody covers your music, but when it's someone you have a lot of respect for, it carries a lot more weight. And yeah, I was thrilled.
Nice. So, those guys are super huge SNFU fans. I actually found out about SNFU because I was a fan of Propagandhi, and I saw your name pop up in interviews over the years and like in liner notes and things like that. And, so in the meantime and in between time is my favorite SNFU record. Like Elaine, Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump. Like I live in Buffalo, New York, so Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump really stands out to me. Cockatoo Quill, Wreck in Progress. Like these are some of my all-time favorite SNFU songs. And I also loved Chris's rendition of Wreck in Progress. But, my glee when I heard about a new EP of unreleased Meantime songs was just tremendous. I've been just so excited about this for weeks. And, when Meantime was done being recorded at the end of this process back in the early 2000s. I'm curious about like the state of these 5 songs that made it onto this new EP. What were they left as back in the original sessions?
Well, they were just bed tracks with one vocal. That's all they were. So a couple of the songs we knew weren't going to go on the record, but we had them, so we just wanted to have them recorded in some form. And just did really the vocal takes were just like 1 or 2 passes on with the vocal just to have something there. And so they were very basic. I overdubbed. I think I redid the guitars on all the songs. There might be some guitars I left, but I redid the guitars, added some background vocals. Obviously, Hail Bop, the Propagandhi guys did backgrounds and guitar, and Chris did some singing, and they added a bunch of backgrounds and stuff like that I didn't really ask for, but it was totally fine. And again, just sort of like channeling if they're excited about it, and it was good. It was all good. And Yeah, so they were just really basic bed tracks with a one vocal pass.
What do you mean by bed track? Can you describe what that means for anybody out there who's not really familiar with that term?
Oh, bed track is just like your first, when you're recording, you can record and there's no rules to recording. You could record your basic drum track, but when we are recording, the bed track would be your first take of the song with drums and bass and probably a scratch guitar in the headphones that you wouldn't use, just so you sort of get a nice little mix in your headphones. So it's just the basic track, drums, bass, and guitar.
So are the bass and the drums that you hear on the new EP, are those like original to the session back from like 2004?
Yes, all the bass and drums are original. I actually wanted to get our second bass player, Dave Bacon, who played on the If You Swear You Catch No Fish record, to play on Suddenly. But I sent him the files, and it took a very long time to get the files back. And I didn't like his part that he recorded, which is really unfortunate. And he didn't really seem eager to redo the part either. So I ended up going back and using Rob Johnson's bass part, which is totally fine.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Tell me about what these songs were doing for the last decade and a half. Like, were they like on like master 2-inch tapes? Like, did you have them stored digitally in Pro Tools, like some kind of, like hard drive? Like, where did you have these?
They were, I think the sessions were, what were they? What form were they in? They were digitized. So they weren't on 2-inch. They were originally on 2-inch tape, but they were digitized. So I had them in, I think it might have been a CD. I can't even remember now.
Wow.
Might have been a CD. But so they were all digitized. They were digitized files, recorded to 2-inch and then digitized. So they were sitting around for 5 or no longer, like 10, 12 years.
Wow. So like the vocal takes of Chai Pig, like those are like either like the first or second take for all 5 songs?
Yeah, pretty much. Because like I said, some of them we didn't think were going to be used. Some of the songs might have been more, might have been 5 or 6, but really the songs for sure that we didn't think we were going to use, there was no point knocking yourself out trying to get a perfect take, because we sort of thought they would be readdressed at some later time. And a part of the reason, like what made it so exciting listening to Chai's vocals, is because like a few of the things that he did before he passed away, he doesn't sound that strong. He sounded like a different person. And then you listen to these tapes and it's like, oh my God, it's like a phoenix. It's like totally back to old Chai,
Yeah, this is like the height of his powers, like his vocal powers. Like, I mean, like in the meantime and in between time, it's like such a tremendously powerful vocal performance for the entire LP. And really like, so it's like to hear peak Chai Pig in 2021, I mean, it's just moving. And I know the fans feel that way.
And lyrically really sharp too, like so good. Like the leadoff song, The Awful Truth, was originally going to be on the album. It was for sure going to be on the record. But Rob, our bass player at the time, left the band. And when he left, he was like, well, just take all my bass parts off the record. So we did that. And it didn't make any sense to put Rob wrote the song with The Awful Truth, and it didn't make any sense to put his song on the record if his bass parts weren't on there. So
okay, so Matt, the bass player who is also on the CP, so there's 2 bassists on the EP. There's Matt Warhurst, I believe. Is that how you say his last name? And then Rob. So so Matt came in for the Meantime sessions after Rob left, and that's why there's 2 bassists that appear on the CP?
Yes, absolutely. And I even sent the songs because I couldn't really tell. So I sent the songs off to Matt, and he figured out which ones he played on and said, oh, those other ones are definitely Rob's. And there was a bit of a stylistic difference, but I don't know.
So were there songs that are on this EP that were like more done that you had to touch less than others? Like what were the ones that were like the most finished, and which ones were the least finished?
The least finished. Well, I think they're all about the same, because I ended up redoing the old guitars on every song. I think Suddenly was the least finished, maybe, because there was one bed guitar that I didn't change, and I was planning on doing all the guitars, and I did one pass with a clean guitar, and then we added keyboards. So it might be Suddenly, but they're all sort of in the same state, really.
Nice. When did you start working on these guitar tracks, on these like guitar retracks, essentially? Like how long, where did you do this, and when did this start happening?
Oh, last summer.
Nice.
At the beginning of last summer, I just started pecking away at it because there was no deadline. It's not like we're not touring or anything like that. There was no. It was more important to do the project in the right way and have something good than rushing it out and making it. And at that, it had been, it's been 17 years or whatever since 2000. So there was no point rushing it out. And then when Chai passed, I slowed down even more because I didn't want to release it right after he passed away because it looks really bad. And so there was just more important about doing it well.
Nice. Well, I'm curious about like some of the personnel on this record. So the original In the Meantime and In Between Time was mixed by Dave Ogilvy, and this new one was mixed by Merrick David. So tell me about the decisions for mixing on this new EP.
Well, we love working with Dave because he's a friend of ours and he's got so much experience as a mixer. And so it's fun working with him, and we respect him, and he sort of knows the band. So we just love working with Dave. And that's why we worked with Dave. In this case, it's been so long, and I'm living in Victoria now. And Merrick, I had worked with before. Merrick did the Wheat Chiefs record.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time when we did the Wheat Chiefs album, that was the most satisfying project that I had ever worked on, that I'd felt the most proud of. And just the whole session felt really good. And he lives here now, so we hang out and we golf together and we do music stuff. I think he's sort of frustrated by my lack of speed and getting things done because like I'm not a touring working musician. So it's like stuff just gets done when it gets done. Like
awesome.
Like even when I was doing redoing the guitars on the songs when I started last summer, it was very slow process. Like I would sit down once a night, maybe every night, and just do a couple passes and then leave it, and then maybe get back at the next day or the day after, because there was no didn't feel like there was any need to speed it along.
Yeah.
And working with Merrick, I'm always like, oh yeah, I'll get this stuff for you, and it just takes me forever to do stuff.
That is so funny. What about the mastering? So Tom Baker did the LP, and then Noah Mintz did this one. Tell me about the mastering.
Well, Tom Baker is a master at mastering. But he's expensive. And so I just started searching out other people. And when I did the 7-inch thing, the Happy Number 7-inch.
Yeah.
I was just searching around, getting quotes and stuff like that, and contacted Lacquer, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy Noah can do it. And I've met Noah before when he was playing in a band called Head, and he was like, hey, and he was very excited about doing it. And he did a pretty good job. And I just like channeling that kind of energy. When people are excited about a project, it means that they're going to probably try a bit harder,
for sure,
and make sure they do a good job. So it was simple as that. So to sort of stumbled upon Noah for the 7-inch, and then just went back to him to do the EP. I actually contacted Stephen Egerton about mastering the EP, but he never got back to me.
Oh, so nice.
Yes. And I was just like, okay. Because Stephen remastered the Better Than a Stick in the Eye album for us.
Huh.
And which is super cool because, it's Stephen Egerton.
Yeah.
And, but like I said, I contacted him about doing the EP and he never got back to me. So
interesting.
I just moved on.
Tell me about the cover art. So Marc Belke did the art for the new EP. Tell me about this fantastic cover and like the process of getting this thing made, because it is amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. Marc Belke is an incredible artist. But the original idea for the artwork for the EP, because there were outtakes from In the Meantime, was got to get Sean Maxey to do another illustration, do a different illustration. So finally, it took a while to find Sean because I don't even know why, but I found his work email online. I contacted him and waited, and he wrote back to me, and he was super stoked about doing a cover. He was like, oh, that's so great. I'd love to do it. And then totally ghosted me for, I didn't hear from him for weeks. And he sent me some fanzines that he did. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I didn't really know, am I supposed to use these images and he's like, no, that's just what I'm doing now.
Like samples.
And then, yeah. And that's like, okay. And then I waited and he'd wait because I just like giving him space, and you don't want to be on his back all the time. Like, where's the artwork? Where's the artwork? And could not get a hold of him for like a month. And he finally got back to me, and I guess doing art for him conjures up some strange feelings or something like that he didn't want to revisit. So he's like, so he went from being honored to being like, I can't do this.
Interesting.
So I was like, okay, can't use Sean Maxey. And thought, so it's the whole process of like, okay, what do we do then? It's like, still want to get an illustration. That would be good. And then on our coffee table was this Marc Belke little art book that Marc Belke had done. My partner Jennifer had did a art magazine called Homesick when I met her, like over 15 years ago, and Marc was part of that project. But right when I'm trying to think about illustrations, Marc's book's there, and I thought, oh, what the hell? I'm just going to contact Marc. So I searched him on Instagram, found him, and asked him to do the cover. And he was a big SNFU fan. He's like super into it. He's like, yes, I totally want to do this record. I think he said, if you saw you catch a fish is like one of my favorite records, blah, blah, blah. Like this kind of thing. It was like, great. And he's just been a champion. Like, it's funny. He asked me all this questions about stuff, and I'm just like, whatever. You're the guy.
You're Marc Belke.
Yeah. Like even picking the vinyl colors and stuff like that. I'm with Barry. I'm like, ask Marc. Just ask Marc.
Amazing.
Yeah, because he's a great artist. He's very renowned. And again, it's like you stumble across these people and just channel that energy into the project. It's great. So it's like Noah loves the band. Great. Propagandhi, they love the band. Great. Marc Belke loves the band. It's like, it feels good.
I absolutely love that. That is so cool. And I'm so excited about my vinyl. Like I just ordered the vinyl the other day, and I'm going to get it from Chase the Glory. And I'm so happy because that artwork is going to look so like just ridiculously amazing on a 12-inch. Like I just can't wait, you know?
I know as you're listening to the music, you're going to be like,
it's so good. Okay. Yeah. So, how did you get Propagandhi involved? Like, why did you decide to reach out to Chris and Todd and Jord for Hail Bop specifically? What was this process like of getting them into this project?
How did it work?
And why just one song? Why not more? Why was it only the one?
Well, because there was only 5 songs.
Yeah.
So just to get them on one song would be good. I sort of thought they'd do it because they're such big fans. Again, they always say like the nicest things. I'm just like, really? Oh wow, that's very flattering.
That's awesome.
And they're such a great band. I have a lot of respect for them. So it's just it's like trying to channel energy. It's like, yeah, let's get Propagandhi. I'll just ask Propagandhi. I always say let's, but it's just me, really. Let's get Propagandhi to play on it. And so I just asked Chris, and he had covered the other SNFU song before that. So I thought, yeah, that's cool. He did the SNFU song. I'm going to get them on this song. And it was as simple as that. And they were really into it. So I sent them the files, and they did it.
I think that Chris actually posted a picture on the band's Instagram or something when they were sitting in the basement, where Chris is wearing a pink shirt and they're wearing masks, and like Todd and Jord are on other sides of the basement, and Chris is at the desktop, and they're like working on a project. But now I'm probably putting together that they were probably doing the background vocals for Hail Bop, like right there on that day, like, cause they must've gotten together over the summer, during the pandemic and everything, because that's what they were working on, right?
Yes, it was I knew what they were doing. I knew it.
That is so fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So Chris Hanna and Brent Belke play guitars on Hail Bop in addition to your guitars. And I know Chris's guitar was recent, but was Brent's guitar track from 2004, or was that recently added as well?
This was recent because I just wanted to get Brent to play on it. And Brent did something that we didn't really like, his part that he did. We asked him to redo it, and then he just did his part is so basic, you can barely tell that what he's doing on there, but he did play a rhythm guitar track, which is really important to me that he's on there.
Yeah.
And again, there was like so much time, and I asked him, it's like, you can do something a little different, because I wanted to get him to do like a triple harmony on that Hail Bop.
Yeah.
I wanted to get like 3 guitars, like this really but he wouldn't do it. Brent's is like, no, I don't get it.
So what is Chris's guitar lick? Like if you could can you like hum it or anything like so it can stand out to listeners of this Propagandhi podcast?
Chris's guitar lick?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he harmonizes the wind. There's like it's like I don't even know what you call it, like a bridge kind of lead, like pre-verse lead.
Okay.
And I play the first one, and then he comes in and harmonizes on that, and then he does this. I was laughing because when he sent me the file, it's so obviously it's Chris Hanna, but it's so his style because he does that lead and then he does that little arpeggio kind of thing. It's like,
yeah,
totally sounds like Chris. It's awesome.
I love it.
And even his way he's riffs, like his riffing style is way tighter than mine. Like it's cool that he did it because it sounds just like him.
Well, and the reason why I asked you to sing it is because like we go to all the extremes here to geek out on Propagandhi. So, I wanted everybody to be like, okay, there's Chris and there's Marc's guitar. And I wanted listeners of this to like go and listen to that right after they hear this conversation so that they can pick out exactly what we're talking about. Take the nerddom to the max. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He jumps in on the harmony, on the lead, and then his vocal, he sings a couple lines with Shy. Where I don't know on the verses. You can
okay,
hear him.
That's a question I have. So is Chris singing the backing vocals on the first verse underneath the lyric? Got my black shirt on, got my black pants, got my new track shoes on. Is that Chris underneath Chai right there?
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Chris,
all the stuff I didn't ask him to do, but they just did it.
Chris has got to be just so thrilled that he was able to do that, to like share of a line with Chai Pig. I mean, that's
I know it's kind of freaky, right?
It's unbelievable.
I'm
so happy right now. What did Jord and Todd do to contribute to the final version of Hail Bop?
They did hand claps and did some haze.
Okay, so are they at the end where it's like, hey, like the really intense, like forward sounding high in the mix haze?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff I didn't ask for, but it's fine.
Dude, I love it. I'm glad that you rolled with it too, that you like were like, okay, I didn't really ask for this, but here it is, and we're just moving forward with it.
Well, I think over time it's something that I've learned because like after all the projects we do, that SNFU was very sort of not very open-minded to other people's opinions about what we want, what they thought we should do, and they should do things like this. And we were always like, no. We just wanted to do our own thing. And I don't think it's right. I think you got to be a little more open-minded and sort of just listen to things and not immediately say no because it's alien. You got to sort of sit back and give it a good set of ears and just think about it. And sometimes it's good.
I love it. Well, Marc, recently you've been working with Chase the Glory, a great record label in Canada, who's doing a great job on re-releasing the records on vinyl and CD. I have a couple test pressings in my house here of some of those records that I got from Chase the Glory. I have several of the variants of vinyl from some of the LPs. And I'm curious, so like a lot of these records came out on Epitaph. And, just like from the business end of music, I'm curious about what you had to do in order to get rights to records, to get permission for reissues. Tell me about how you went about making all these reissues happen, because they're fantastic. And I want to know what you had to do to make it work.
Well, I didn't have to do that much. I mean, they're all licensing deals. We're not signed to his label. So he's basically paying for the right to press and sell the record. So every record has its own contract, and it's just like a straight licensing fee. And if we were getting the same amount of licensing money as Epitaph, that'd be great. But we don't. And it's this weird thing that I've experienced with even people in Europe. It's like they're willing to dish out tons of money to Epitaph, but if they're dealing with me, the artist on the record, they don't want to pay you that much. It's
interesting.
Bizarre. It's like, why don't you pay me the 30 grand or whatever? Like,
yeah.
But in Epitaph's case, we also owe them money.
Oh, okay.
It's like this major label kind of deficit thing that even when I had talked to Brett years ago now about it, he was like kind of surprised how much we owed. He was like, what? Okay. So we do owe the money. So I'm so over being mad about that kind of stuff now.
Yeah.
And with Barry just approached us because he's a big SNFU fan and he wanted to do it. And out of all the people I've dealt with in the music industry and record labels and stuff like that, Barry's just like a nice guy. He's a family guy. He gives me what I think is a good deal. He does a good job, and I trust him, you know?
And they look amazing. The finished products are incredible.
Yeah, and part of it's because he's a fan, right? Like he's
Yeah.
into it and he wants to do the best job that he can.
I love it. Do you have any like are there anything else that you're thinking about working on with Chase the Glory? Is there any other projects in the works that you're thinking about?
I'm gonna start finishing off. I had a band called Based on a True Story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna finish off that, but I'm not sure if it'll be pressed to vinyl. I mean, he did the Wheat Chiefs record, which I was surprised he did the Wheat Chiefs record, and so I don't know if he'll press it or what. The 2 BYO records, maybe, because BYO sold their catalog to another label.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't even know about it. Someone told me about it, not the BYO guys. But in the United States, and they told the story was they sold the label. Kevin Seconds got a call from the new label, this label called Trust, that bought the whole catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And they phoned Kevin. They're like, "Oh, we're putting your record out." He's like, "Who are you? Who? What?"
Oh my God.
I know.
Oh.
It sucks. But I don't know if it's like an American law thing or if it's like a global. After 35 years, you can apply to get your records back.
Oh, sweet.
It's as simple as that. You just give them the paperwork. You need like 3 of the 5 people to approve it, the band members or whatever, and you get the rights to your records back. So
okay, so one of those is from 82, right? So we're at that 35 years, right?
We're at 35 years.
Awesome.
So I just have to, at my very leisurely pace, dig out the contracts and we'll probably do it. But I'm not sure if Barry's going to do it or if this friend of ours in the States might do it too. So
awesome.
But those 2 BYO records will probably come out in some form.
Man, you could do it in both countries too. You know what I mean? Like you could do Barry in Canada, and then you could do an American deal for for fans out there who get hosed on shipping because shipping in the US right now is such a disaster. Like you could do both and it would, make a lot of fans happy. But that's more work for you.
Yes. And I was even going to do the EP myself, but when I sat down, because I did the 7-inch and I always call it like arts and crafts because they don't make a lot of money. But I was going to do it. And then I sat down and I was just and started looking at the logistics and I was like, I don't want to do this again.
Yeah.
So I called Barry and Barry was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Is Rake Records, is that you?
Yeah. Anything that I do now will go on the Rake Records label.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up a mutual friend of ours who is a massive SNFU fan, Christian, over at the Rad Dads podcast, one of the biggest SNFU fans on the planet. And Christian is super stoked on all the reissues that are happening. And he has the most impressive SNFU vinyl collection I've ever seen. He sends me fantastic pictures of it all, and I'm just like in awe of what Christian has. How is he? I know he's been involved in the process a little bit with the reissues. What's Christian been doing? Because I just love their podcast so much, and I want to give them a shout out too.
I don't know what he's doing. I think Barry calls him to work on stuff or gets stuff from, but I don't really know. Honestly, don't know.
I think he's doing like some copy editing and maybe like trying to track down some pictures and stuff like that. But shout out to Christian over at Rad Dads podcast. Love that dude. They're doing great work. Well, Mark, as we mentioned earlier, hearing Ken at the height of his abilities on these new songs is such a thrill. Do you have any I'm curious about your absolute favorite memories of Ken Chin. Like, do you have any things that just really jump out at you about your career spent together creating all this fantastic art and music?
Well, I mean, we were really good friends for the first. I mean, by the end of our relationship, we were not good friends at all. It became very toxic, our relationship, which isn't, that's just the way things go. Our friendship had evolved into sort of a weird business artistic entanglement that, I don't know, it was very toxic by the end. So all the good times, like when I was 16, when I first met him, when we started the band and we were doing those first tours and stuff like that, that was golden era. So all that is really good. We were really good friends. So I treasure that for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Mark, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show, to talk about this new EP, to talk about your collaboration with Propagandhi, to remember Chai Pig and all the amazing things that you two accomplished together. It's such a thrill. Can you give listeners out there, shout out some links to yourself to where people can find you if they want to follow what you're up to?
Well, the EP is available at the Bandcamp site on the Rake Records page at the Bandcamp site. And beyond that, I mean, I'm on social media. I don't really, it's not that interesting what I post. It's like a lot of golf pictures and things like that.
Being
But
a
I'm
rad
on
dad.
Instagram. Yeah, I'm at Instagram. I think Muck B is my handle.
Yeah.
And I'm on Twitter at Marc Belke on Twitter. So like nothing, like even the official SNFU Twitter page, I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, Marc Belke, it is such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming on Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi does SNFU.
Yeah.
It's a thrill, man. I'm just so honored that you were willing to do this with me tonight. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Anytime. I love talking about SNFU.